Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful, for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Bruce. I'm doing fantastic. Uh, I've been working out for like 3 weeks straight, and that's paying off. And it looks like, Bruce, it looks like it's happening. It looks like solid plans are in place. What are you looking for there, Bruce? Looks like solid plans are in place. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Solid plans in place for the NHL playoffs.
Fine.
And you're still. I can't hear you. Is there something? Yeah,
Mike's right here. Hello?
You got to pull it all closer to you.
Holy moly.
Yeah. Alrighty. Solid plans in place, Bruce, for the NHL playoffs. The not final plans, but it looks like there's going to be 24 teams in the playoffs with a first round featuring 4 teams getting a bye based on winning percentage. Based on your winning percentage, they rank the teams in the conferences. And based on that, the Oilers aren't one of the top 4 teams. They are they fifth? And they will be playing the Chicago Blackhawks in the first round of the playoffs. It looks like it's not finalized, but this is where it's headed. So because of that, Bruce, I'm in a good mood. I've been predicting for some time that there will be NHL playoffs. It struck me right from the start that there would be a couple things would happen. That the COVID crisis would be less in the summer because of how other coronaviruses behave in the summer. They tend to go away. A, B, that they would find a way to quarantine the players. Even if there was a bigger outbreak, they would find a way to successfully quarantine the players and have playoffs. And C, that there would be enough money just from staging the games on television to actually hold the playoffs and make money that way, even if there's no fans in the stands. And that's what it's turned out to be, Bruce. And this huge roster of playoff teams looks like it's been driven, like the fact that we have 24 teams and not 16 teams, which I would have preferred 16 teams. That's driven by the economic model where Sportsnet and other networks involved wanted the big markets in, wanted more teams in, wanted more TV content, and they're ruling the day here. So the NHL can make this economical and pay off for everybody. And this has driven the current playoff format. So there's some fans, Bruce. There's some fans. Some people aren't very happy with. They're happy that hockey's coming back. I assume, but they're not very happy with the playoff format. And you're in that camp. So let's hear what you're thinking.
Darn right. Can you hear me all right for starters?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah. They brought hockey back, and there was a lot of models that they could have gone by, and they had to work at it pretty hard. But it seems to me, as a paranoid Oilers fan, with reason, of paranoia after many years in this, that they managed to find the one system that forced the Oilers to play a fifth series, whereas all the other top divisional teams only have to play 4. They turned away a model that saw the team simply finish out the regular season or a chunk of the regular season and go with the 16-team playoff. They turned away a model that had a 20-team playoffs where you had 10 versus 7, 9 versus 8 in the given conference as a play-in structure, and managed to go all the way to 24 because there was a couple of high-profile markets, notably New York Rangers, Montreal Canadiens, Chicago Blackhawks that are all in that 21 to 24 range. So they increased it to 24 and just go directly into playoffs, which is one thing the players were worried about right from the start, is that if you drop them back in 3 months' time, have not played any games, and just right away playoff games, that is a huge stress on the players coming back. And they found a structure where they have in each conference 12 teams. We talked about this in our last podcast. It's similar to what the NHL did from 1974 to 78, where the top teams got a bye, top four got a bye, and 5 through 12 played each other in the playoffs. And in those days, the byes were based on first place in the division, and the four first place in division teams each got a bye. And this time around, even though they had a playoff structure since 2013-14 that's been based on divisional rivalries, where first place in the division, first top three teams in the division are guaranteed playoff spots, top two are guaranteed home ice advantage. You're guaranteed a whole bunch of divisional rivalries in the first two rounds of the playoffs. That, for whatever reason, that's been cast aside, and they've defaulted back to the old model of conference playoffs. And in the conference playoffs, instead of having the top two from each division, they've gone with the top four in the conference. Moreover, they've gone by points percentage rather than points, where Edmonton is fourth in the Western Conference in points right now. But by points percentage, they slide down to fifth, and Dallas Stars, who, by the way, are 10th overall in the NHL, managed to get into the bye position in the West, while Edmonton is forced to play an extra series. And I'm pretty unhappy about that that little sleight of hand. I mean, to me, the divisional structure was the way. Just stick to divisions. You want to promote these divisional rivalries, Gary. How about promoting divisional rivalries? Instead, we have 8 play-in series where one out of the 8 is a divisional rivalry, and all the rest are Pacific versus Central. All 4 series in the West are Pacific versus Central.
Do you really care, though, Bruce, about divisional rivalries? Like,
yeah,
I don't.
That's what they've been growing for years.
Yes, does it really matter?
Yes,
I can see being upset the Oilers don't have a bye. But
100% it matters.
Why?
You try and win the division, then you win the conference, then you win the cup. It's the way it's supposed to work. That's how the Oilers won all their cups. They won the division, they won the Smythe division, then they took on the Campbell Conference champions, then they took on Eastern Conference champions. To me, the divisional rivalries is a big thing. And instead of having what would have been 6 out of 8 series with divisional rivals playing each other, there's 1 out of 8. Okay. And with more of the same in the second round. So
what about them not getting the bye? What do you think about that? Like, Dallas getting the bye and them not getting it?
It pisses me off, because Dallas is in 3rd place in their division and Edmonton's in 2nd in theirs. I mean, to me, the bye is exact equivalent to home ice advantage in the playoffs. You have 8 teams that start the playoffs on home ice. You have 8 teams that are getting the bye under this new format. Well, the 8 teams that would start the playoffs on home ice, Edmonton Oilers were one of them. Dallas Stars were not, because Edmonton's in 2nd place in their division. Dallas Stars are not. And yet they're going by points percentage to decide, oh no, Dallas is ahead of Edmonton, and let's get an 8th American team in those 8 bye positions, and let's force the 2nd place Edmonton Oilers, of all the top 2 teams in the 4 divisions, let's force the 2nd place Edmonton Oilers to play an extra playoff series. And I think it's a ripoff.
So here's what Kristen Shilton says.
Mm-hmm.
Where does she write? Kristen Shilton. Let me just see here. TSN.
Yeah.
Get back to her comment. She says, hockey is like pizza. It's always good. Even if it's not from your favorite place. Even if it's not the best you've ever had, it's still pizza. And some kind of pizza is better than no pizza. Don't be mad about this format that hockey will most likely come back with. So, listen, I if people are like, I actually share somewhat your peak about the whole thing with Dallas getting the bye and the Oilers not getting the bye. I agree that stinks. Like that's not my preference. Although, Bruce, part of me also thinks that playing that first round series, like, I know it could take a lot out of you, but I think that playing those high intensity games is going to be could be better for the teams in the long run through the playoffs, and certainly in the second. In the if you're playing a bye team in that first round, you will. I think you might have an advantage of having played higher competitive games than the bye games are going to be. And part of me thinks, and especially because the Oilers' first round opponent, the Chicago Blackhawks, aren't a particularly physical teams. It's not like you're playing the 1989-90 Detroit Pistons and you're the Chicago Bulls. I just watched that last night. And what a great series that is, the Michael Jordan thing, The Last Dance. But it's not like you're playing the Philadelphia Flyers circa 1974. You're playing the Chicago Blackhawks, it's a skill team. They're not a hugely physical team. I'm just looking at Andrew Shaw's not even playing, I don't believe. Who's their toughest? Do they have anyone now that doesn't? Connor Murphy's a tough player. They got some tough players, but this isn't. I'm not anticipating this is going to be a hugely nasty first round for the Oilers, but it's going to be super competitive. The Oilers could lose. They could lose to Patrick Kane and the Blackhawks, but I think there might be some advantage having a tougher series. You go into the second round, you're more geared up, and you have. So that's thoughts playing on my mind as well. And I am in kind of I'm happy with any pizza at all crowd. Listen, there's been so many worries that I've been focused on and other people have been focused on. This just seems like the least of all worries to me, and I'm not. And maybe that's why I'm generally having a hard time getting outraged, and for me that's unusual.
Well, I'm interested in competitive fairness, and like I say, I think they had to jump through a few hoops here to. They were all so worried about a team that was just outside the playoffs not getting a chance of getting in. And here we have 12th place teams that are 10 points in arrears. And instead of having any attempt to finish off the regular season, they're in. And they're in with basically an equal chance as teams that were well and firmly in playoff positions and are playing off. And here's what Michael Parcati wrote. He's an analyst by day and a hockey analyst by night. He says, what's most insane about the 24-team suggested format is that it inordinately impacts a select few teams. Chicago and Montreal go from 1% chance of making the playoffs to, let's back the envelope, 40%, while the Oilers go from about 95% to 60%. He's given the Oilers a 60-40 chance of winning the series. And the Hockey Reference .com odds had 2.5% chance for Chicago and 93.4% chance for Edmonton. Basically, the regular season is almost getting cast aside. And then he says you have a bizarre cutoff point. Oilers go from 95% to 60%, whereas Dallas goes from 95% to 100%. And the Oilers actually have a superior goal differential, he says. And in fact, the Oilers have more points than Dallas. And the tiebreaker, it says points percentage can be used to break a tie, but it's not even a tie. Edmonton's ahead. So they're basically circumventing that rule altogether. And I understand the circumstances are unusual to say the least, but where does it say points percentage is the be all and end all? It doesn't. It says points percentage will break a tie if the teams are tied, but if they're not, the team with the most points is ahead. Well, that's gone by the boards. They've got if you dropped Edmonton's last two games, so they had the even number of games as Dallas, they're tied in points, and Edmonton has clearly got the first tiebreaker, which is second tiebreaker beyond games played, which is 31 regulation wins to 26. They got a better goal differential. I mean, to me, Edmonton was a better team than Dallas. And you know what? They're in second place in their division. That's where I keep going back to. And
so is this
Pittsburgh
considered
Penguins
playoffs?
is 4 points ahead of Dallas, and yet they have to play in because they're in the wrong conference. So they really have to kind of mix and match with
Is
different
this considered
systems.
playoffs? The first round, the
I have
playoffs
no
or
idea.
play-ins? So listen, if this is a way of they couldn't have the regular season. They couldn't play out the regular season.
Not all
That was
games.
never going to happen. You couldn't convince those 7 teams with those players who had no chance of making the playoffs to get fully in shape, get ready for it. That made no sense. It's just logistically impossible,
Right.
to finish the regular season. So
100%.
I'm in terms of raising that as an issue. To me, that is a non-issue.
No,
They can't finish the regular season. Now, if this play-in is considered a fitting, an end to if it's considered regular season play, and these will be considered regular season statistics as opposed to playoff statistics,
Mhm.
That's an interesting way to figure out the rest of the regular season. I see it as the first round of the playoffs,
Mhm.
actually. So in that,
First of 5 rounds, yeah.
yeah, and I see that. For some reason it's more acceptable to me as the first round of the playoffs than as the way to solve the regular season because then Edmonton seems to be screwed a little bit more. But anyway, it's all I just
Yep.
don't I just can't get upset about it, Bruce. I don't feel like I need to apologize for that or to criticize you
Oh,
for being
yeah.
upset about it. Everyone's going to feel how they feel. Like as I was saying before this, I was really upset with the last World Cup. I didn't watch it because
Mhm.
of Team North America, like Connor McDavid not being on Team Canada. I just
Mhm.
hated that idea so much, and it was so offensive to me that I did not watch. I did not watch the World Cup because of that. I just thought they've ruined it. They've ruined what was great about international competition was best of the best. Team Canada doesn't have Connor McDavid. I'm not watching it, and I
Right.
didn't. Well, I watched one game,
Mhm.
but I
Well,
didn't watch most of it. I didn't watch the final.
how much of these playoffs will you watch once, assuming Edmonton gets eliminated at some point along the way?
Well, they're not
How
going to,
much,
Bruce. They're
how
going to
much
win
of
the
these
cup.
contrived playoffs will you,
I don't like your
will
negativity,
you,
Bruce. The Oilers are on the way to the cup. They're going to
if and when?
they're going to win
Well, yeah,
it.
they're going to just blow through 5 teams. I mean, this fifth team is an obstacle, and that's my concern. It's not so much Chicago; it's a whole extra series, and it's going to take a toll. To me, now when I'm talking about regular season, I'm talking about a proposal they had going that had serious legs, and I thought this one actually made a lot of sense. And from a time perspective, it's identical because the idea was six. Uh, 24 teams into sort of an extra round of regular season. You have 4 groups of 6 teams separated by division with wild cards, so that the seventh place Chicago, which is way better than any of the California teams, would get a wild card position in the Pacific, and the seventh place Rangers, which is way better than the teams at the bottom of the Atlantic Division, would get the wild card position. So that's the same way as the fifth place team going to get a wild card right now. Basically, exact same spirit of the rules. Get the 6 teams together in each division, play one round robin, 5 games, which is the same as best of 5. It would take the exact same amount of time. Uh, use either the real standings or some formula of the standings that they had proposed to give teams that had earned the lead an actual lead as opposed to starting on a level ground with a 24th place team and play out those games. Then every team in the league would be guaranteed 5 games minimum, 5 games, and then from that you determine your first, second, third, your 2 wild cards, and you carry on with your playoffs. That was the structure. I mean, wasn't perfect. There's no perfect. Bettman said there's no perfect, and on this occasion, I agree with Bettman. But that doesn't mean you search around and find the least perfect. And
I see that round. So it's the 24 teams, and you have a round robin, divisional round robin, and determined playoff
mhm,
the 16 playoff teams that way. Listen, if they had done that, I would have been good with that too.
yep.
I'm just not too picky is the thing here. Like I'm not too picky about this, and I that sounds good to me. I can see the rationale for this as well. And
Mhm.
you have it's conference
Why
playoffs. You rank.
conference instead of division playoffs, David? Why switch from what you've been playing for all year, which is divisional standings? Why suddenly there's an emphasis on
Well,
conference standings?
my understanding is it's driven by they want to get certain cities, make sure certain cities are in the playoffs, and so Sportsnet
That
can make more
was.
money and the NHL can make more money. And I'm Bruce, I'm not against that. Like I'm
Mhm.
okay. They have to make they're all
No,
trying
I
to
get that.
they're
I get
trying to
that
make their business
too.
work. They're trying to make this model work and they're used to making so much money. It's a lot
Hmm.
of money. It's an obscene amount of money. They're used to making it, but that's their right. Like this is their business. They're making what they think is the best business decision to keep this league on sound financial footing. Maybe if the Oilers weren't on such sound financial footing, people would be thinking, "Oh, this is a good idea. We need this." The Oilers are really strong right now financially, so that hasn't been a concern in Edmonton for some time. But I'm not against them running their business to try to maximize profits, and it's not that offensive to me. As you say, there's a precedent for this. The NHL ran their whole playoffs this way for
Hmm.
for what is it, 4 years?
Yep.
So um,
I'm not arguing with you on the 24 teams being in there. That's a done deal. Why switch from division to conference when you could do the same 24 teams, the same playoff structure, but actually do it by divisions the way this season was designed and the way the teams have been playing towards playoff positions this season? They
Would it not
abandoned that.
change the playoff? Would it? Who would it, if they didn't go by points percentage, but went by divisional, where
Yeah.
teams were ranked in the division? Would they be the same 24 teams?
Yeah, if you had the wild cards, and I think the wild card, I mean, that would be true to form too, where you could have a seventh place team beat out a sixth place team because they're better.
So no teams would change if you didn't go by
No,
points
same
percentage.
24 teams.
Okay, all right. So
Same
that's yeah.
24 teams, and
Listen,
you'd
I'm
have
not.
better
I'm not saying.
matchups because you'd have traditional rivalries in this play-in round instead of these weird cross-divisional things.
I think your suggestion's better. I'll give you that. I think I would have preferred that too. But that said,
It is
I'm
what it
okay.
is. I understand
I,
that, and
I'm okay
I
with that.
just don't have to be happy with it. And
You do not,
like I say, I have a
and you are
long
not.
grievance list of off-ice issues going back to Bengt Gustafson getting stolen from the Oilers when they first entered the NHL, and going back to Wayne Gretzky losing the Calder Trophy on one technicality and the Art Ross Trophy on another technicality in his brilliant first NHL season, as it's officially recorded in the record books.
Paul Coffey
And
getting screwed out of two Norris trophies that he should have won because of Eastern Sports Writers. Bruce, I share all of these grievances with you, and I'm actually unhappy that I do not share this one. I wish
mhm,
I like that list of grievances. I take a
mhm.
lot of
Well, mine
joy
just
from my
it's got
list of
+1
grievances.
on it.
You
And
have one more grievance than me, and I'm a little jealous. I'm a little envious of you right now,
yep,
but that's how the world works. Can't
yeah.
have everything. I can't share that grievance. All right.
He grabbed his
Let's
pad too. To me, that's an off-ice issue because they screwed up the replay they forced on us all these years. These stupid replays that they choke on when it actually matters and decides playoff series.
now
That's
that is the grievance of all grievances.
grabbed his
Although
pad. Oh,
you have to wonder if Bent Gustafson had been with the Oilers. Like, my only fear is if Bent Gustafson had been with the Oilers, would they have drafted Yari Curry? Like, maybe they would have like maybe they wouldn't have thought. But anyway, that's a
yeah,
long time ago. Bruce, let's talk about a couple other things.
sure.
So there's a prediction from a stats analyst
Hmm.
by the name of, what is his
Sean
name?
Tierney.
Sean Tierney, and he's run the numbers through his model, computer simulation. I don't know how many millions of games he ran through it to come up with these numbers, but he predicts in a 7-game series, if it had been 7 games, the Oilers would have lost in 7 to the Blackhawks. But in a 5-game series, he sees the Blackhawks winning in 4 games. So that's what his computer model is telling us. But I should say that like the difference between these two teams based on his computer model, there's just an infinitesimal difference in many of these games that he's modeled. And but the fact is that the Blackhawks really are a pretty good team, and with some very, very dangerous players. And Jim Matheson of the Edmonton Journal points out that Patrick Kane in 25 games versus the Oilers has 44 points in his 25 last games versus the Oilers. Patrick Kane had an excellent season this year.
Yep.
He's a very, very dangerous hockey player.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons, apparently, Elliot Friedman was saying that the initial idea was to play a 3-game series. And teams strongly objected to that, saying it gave certain teams a bit of an advantage that hadn't done well in the regular season, like Montreal with Carey Price and Chicago with Kane. Players who might suddenly get hot and steal a couple of games in a row and knock out a team that had done better all regular season. So they moved from 3 games to 5 games because of that. And I'm glad that happened. I agree with that concern. I think over time, the better team has a better chance of winning out. And 5 games favors the Oilers, it gives the Oilers more of an advantage. 7 games would have even been better, but then you start to get into the wear and tear issue a bit more.
Parkati suggests that to really make it fair, Chicago should have to win 4 of the 5 games over Edmonton.
And you like that. I like
Well, I
that.
like
That
what he said. What he said made a whole lot of horse sense about the
so yeah.
unleveling of or releveling of what had been established positions, and it's a lot of it's been torn down.
So the Blackhawks, of course, didn't expect to make the playoffs. So here's one piece of leveling that went on during the regular season, which I really like. The Blackhawks didn't expect to make the playoffs, Bruce. So they traded away Eric
Mhm.
Gustafsson, who's a fantastic hockey player, to the Calgary Flames, and they traded away Robin Leonard. Right?
Right.
Who did
Yeah.
Leonard go to? Vegas? Is that right?
Vegas.
So Chicago really weakened itself, and I like that. I think there's some real poetic justice there in the fact that the Blackhawks kind of. And the other suggestion that I really liked was Friedman's suggestion that if the Oilers were to lose to the Blackhawks, they would trade draft order. He wrote this in 31 Thoughts. So if the Blackhawks win, the Oilers get their ranking in the playoffs or for the NHL draft. So that was a suggestion from Friedman that I loved and I thought would be
Well,
fair.
all the
But
teams
it's
that lose in the play-in round should be ranked ahead of the teams that get through.
for the
So
draft.
yeah,
And I think
absolutely,
I think Friedman's right about
100%.
that. I wonder if they'll do that, but the Oilers should absolutely insist upon that because it's bullshit. That would be bullshit
Mm.
if that didn't happen. If you don't make the round of 16 and then Chicago gets a better draft pick, come on. But
Yeah.
again, that's probably unlikely to happen. But so, Bruce, have you done any analysis? What do you think of the prediction that Chicago might beat the Oilers? Have you done any? I haven't really dug into
Oh,
it
what do
yet.
they win one game by 2.78 to 2.74 by
Exactly.
this model?
Yeah, it was. It was.
So some of that is to a degree tongue in cheek, but I mean, what he's saying and what's true is that it's closer. I mean, the league is a parity league that you put any two teams on the ice on a given night, they both have a chance to win. And there's no
Yes.
home ice advantage in the sense that there's going to be nobody playing home games with cheering crowds and so on in the playoffs. Hopefully, you'll have matchup advantages in for the odd game. Um, but I mean, Chicago after a terrible start, they were pretty good. And Patrick Kane. I mean, let's get real here. He's real good. And he has, Matty gave his points. Well, in his career, he's got 56 points in 43 games against Edmonton. Just in the last 5 years, because of course some of that's ancient history, and the Oilers were terrible for a lot of years. But in the last 5 years, since McDavid came to Edmonton, Kane's played all 15 games between Edmonton and Chicago, 7 goals, 20 points. And McDavid's played 11 of the 15 against Chicago, 2 goals, 10 points. So to just sort of assume, well, we got McDavid, and therefore that's a big advantage. Well, geez, Kane he's torched Edmonton consistently for years, including this year, and he's a huge factor. He is getting older. Jonathan Taves is getting older. Duncan Keith is getting older, but those guys have been through a few wars. They're very much a team to. Fear is quite the word. Respect, though.
Oh,
Absolutely. They got thrown into and they get put in an environment where, okay, boys, you have one task in front of you, and you can salvage what was a pretty crappy season for you if you can beat uh, you know, uh, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers in round one, and you've got all these experienced champions on that team, rested up and focused on that task. I mean, it's not going to be easy. It's just an extra layer. And like you say, if the Warriors lose to Chicago, they're going to get dumped on, and they're probably going to deserve some of it. But the issue is more, it's a fifth series, and anyway, we talked about that. It's specific to Chicago. No Robin Lehner. That's just as well. Although Corey Crawford was coming into his own, and Crawford's stats are basically identical to Koskinen. He's 919 save percentage, 277 goals against average. Koskinen is 917 and 275. So, and of course, we don't know which Edmonton goalie is going to start, whereas we're pretty sure Corey Crawford's going to get all of the workload for Chicago since they traded their other main goalie during the season. But again, it's a 5 game series. It's not like we're going to necessarily get a chance at their weaker depth in net. because they have still a proven number one netminder.
I'm
So
not so yeah.
carry on.
I'm not so worried about the stats model, Bruce.
Hmm.
There's one stats model out there that predicts that Valerie Nikushkin on his own could beat the Oilers in the first round. So, I don't
Well,
always put a lot of weight in those stats models. Um, here's why I'm confident the Oilers in the
hmm.
first round. If you look at the Oilers roster right now,
Yep,
how because Nygaard is healthy,
yep.
and so that you're gonna have a top line. I think Tyler Ennis with McDavid and Cassian. You'll have the dynamite line: Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Yamamoto. You'll
That'll
have a
be.
checking line of Nygaard, Sheahan, and Archibald,
Hmm.
and then you'll have Athanasiu, Haas or Kara, and Chase on your fourth line. The
Hmm.
Oilers have four solid lines. On defense, they've got three solid pairings of defensemen. The only question for me is in net, and that's a big question, especially in a small series. Mike Smith and Koskinen, can they be the better goalie than Crawford and Subban? So I think the Oilers are quite a bit better team than the Blackhawks, and but there's the goalie question, and I just see this Oilers team as they've known all along they're getting in the playoffs. They've been working.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've been working out. They're psychologically ready. It's not like McDavid's 20 anymore either, or
No.
18. These guys are they're ready to win in the playoffs. McDavid and Draisaitl. They're going to come out there hitting, skating, playing like we've never seen them play before, better than we've ever seen them play before. I think they're going to take it to the Hawks and beat the Hawks, even though I haven't done any kind of in-depth analysis. I just think the Oilers are psychologically there. They got to be ready for it. They've been preparing this whole time. I don't know if the Blackhawks have. Maybe they've been sitting around watching Netflix and not getting ready because they weren't expecting to make the playoffs. So I of course there's things to worry about, but I think the Oilers they're gonna beat the Blackhawks.
I'm expecting some very sloppy hockey in the play-in round and the round robin that the bye teams get to play some warm-up games without any fear of actually getting eliminated. And I'm expecting some pretty sloppy hockey and maybe less sloppy in terms of there won't be any spitting on the ice. Like there's going to be so much different. There's going to be rules. There's going to be restriction. It's not going to be, well, you finish the season on Sunday and you start the playoffs on Thursday, right? It's like this huge layoff. And when they come back, the whole everything environment will have changed, including the structure of the playoffs. And readiness is, I mean, it's a matter of degree. No one's going to be fully ready. They have a little training camp will help, but they won't have, as far as I know, any exhibition games or anything, and just dropped right into, elimination games right off the bat. And I'm expecting, a little bit of sloppiness or a lot of sloppiness, and of course, as is often the case, goaltending and puck luck are going to be huge, huge factors. I mean, we've said it ourselves, David, and in any game, it's two big plays, two big bounces, two big saves, as opposed to too good, too bad, and two numbers that we do in our podcast. And
Yeah,
that's how a lot of games are decided. And when you're talking about best of five, I mean, anyway,
could be worse.
it,
It could be one game, like the Champions League soccer. I guess it's two games, but that they played home and away. And even more luck in European football. It just really comes down to luck on a certain level where there's so few goals.
mhm.
Anyway, I'm really glad, Bruce, that we're gonna have some hockey here, and it's looking like we are.
Well, they've got
And
a
that's where I'm
structure.
left with all this. And I'm really happy that we're gonna see some games here.
They've got a structure. What we don't have yet is host cities, a date, uh, um, protocols. I mean, this was just one of several hurdles, and the fact that
Yeah,
this actually involves the playing of the games itself is more hopeful than certain other news might be. But there's still a few hurdles to cross. But yeah, let's bring on some games whenever they're going to happen uh, and and take them as they come. I mean, I'm going to watch the games. just because I wish the Oilers were in a different situation, befitting a second place team, doesn't mean I'm not going to watch the games and be, involved as ever. But
The fourth factor, and the reason I always thought there would be games, is these owners are hugely successful, driven people. The players are hugely successful, driven people. These are all people that love to compete, want to compete, they want to make money. And I always thought that kind of can-do mindset would win out over any other concern, and that they were going to proceed unless there was some kind of health concern that simply could not be addressed. And that never seemed reasonable. But the fact now that they've announced this, the ball is it's not just, maybe they were pushing the ball up the hill for a long time there in terms of getting the ball's rolling down the hill towards the playoffs now. Like it's an avalanche, and this is going to happen. Like so I've gone from 90% to 99 to 99.9%. I'm now at 100%. This is going to happen, Bruce. The momentum is irresistible at this point. When you look at where the COVID pandemic is headed in this city and in other cities across the United States, I don't think that's going to change in the next little while, being summertime. So this is going to happen. This is going to happen, and I'm glad.
So here's an ironic little factoid for you, David. If this had happened in either of the last two seasons, at the same timing and everything, the crappy 22nd place Edmonton Oilers would have sleazed their way into the playoffs both years, and yet they were on the outside looking in that time. And this year, where they're legitimately a playoff side, the timing of
Bruce
2020.
Under your scenario, Bruce, I hate to say this, we would have needed COVID outbreaks both other years. So I'll go with what happened. I'll just take the one outbreak, and everything's turned on its head. And again, because of that, I'm just happy. Like I'm counting my blessings on this one. Like honestly, I really am, and I don't feel anything but that. Maybe I'm just glad because my predictions be turning out to be true. Maybe that's part of my happiness. It probably is. But more than that, I really am happy. We're part of the hockey industry, our blog, our readership. I'm happy that we have something, meaningful to write about, and the business model for our existence, doing this work, which I'm really happy to do. It's a lot of fun. I love doing it. I'm happy because of that as well. Like there's a lot of different reasons, personal, being a fan. I also think that people really need this. Like I know there's all of this talk, like, we maybe, some fans are saying I'd rather there wasn't hockey, but I think that actually, and that this playoffs is going to have an asterisk beside it. Yeah, it's going to have an asterisk. The most important playoffs of your lifetime is what that's going to mean, because this is a real symbol that we're getting back on track. We're getting going again. We're coming out of this horrible lockdown, which has been devastating for people's business, which has been devastating for the economy, and we're getting back on track. We have this disease on it. We've cramped it down, tamped it down, the numbers are going down. So for me, the significance is enormous of this playoff series. We're getting our lives, society back together. Hopefully we can keep it on track. And this is a signal of that. It's a sign of that. So for all those reasons, I'm really optimistic and happy about it.
The fear, of course, is a second wave coming in when the temperatures cool down again. But
sure, definitely. But I think we know how to do things now. We've learned a lot about who's vulnerable, who isn't, and how to protect them. I hope we've learned that, and I suspect that we have. Listen, my parents are in a seniors home in downtown Edmonton. They know now what to do to protect those people, and I think we're going to be okay. But
when was the last time you saw them, David? March?
Well, you they can't even get out, Bruce. Like they can't go to the Botanic Gardens. They can't get out and walk around. I can see them across the room, and this is just in the last couple of weeks where you can actually visit them. They've been cooped up and locked down in the rooms. Anyway, I don't want to get into it.
I've been thinking so much about the nightmare about the seniors and the fear and the isolation and the loneliness. Just brutal. It's just brutal. At least they're going to have hockey to watch, eh, David? I mean, this is the bright side of all this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been devastating for people in those seniors' homes, but the fear of and you know, and they're in a seniors home where there was zero spread of the disease. So for them,
Yeah.
they haven't had that, but they've had that fear. But yeah, hopefully there'll be a vaccine soon. You know, I don't have my fingers crossed. I have my fingers crossed on that, but you know, that looks. But there's happy talk about that and optimistic talk. So we'll see.
Here's one more happier factoid for you. As Edmonton versus Chicago will feature 4 of the last 5 Art Ross Trophy winners. Should be an exciting series.
Run and gun, run and gun. Oilers in 3. All right. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks for talking today.
All right, thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast. Hat tip to Ed Whalen.
Malfunction.